In today's video, I'll be talking about upgrade options for the Asus Prime H470M-Plus motherboard. So this is a motherboard that supports a 10th generation Intel Core processors. So I have this motherboard, and basically I also have another computer that I got this year as well, but I still have this as well. This is my secondary computer. So you could upgrade this thing to the max right now, and it's not going to cost very much. And these are some of the upgrade options you can have for this computer. So you could upgrade the CPU to the maximum is an i9 10900K, or you could get the second best one, which is a Intel i7 10700K, or a KF. You could get a better GPU like a Geforce RTX 4070 or a 4080, or a RTX 3070 or 3080. I would recommend that you just get the 4070 or the 4080 because that's newer and it's probably going to have better performance. But if you don't have the money, then you could get something less like this. And as for the RAM options, you can upgrade it to at least 128 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM. And for storage, you could put M.2 NVMe's or 2.5 inch M.2 2.5 inch SSDs, or M.2 NVMe's, or you could put some 3.5 inch hard drives as well. But for the storage options, for M.2 options, you have to there's only 2 slots for M.2 NVMe's here. However, you can expand that by using a PCI Express M.2 NVMe adapter. This motherboard has PCI Express 3.0 ports, but you could use this adapter as well. Even though it says 4.0, you could still use it in a 3.0 slot. But 3.0 PCI Express 3.0 slots gives you about 1 gigabyte per second per lane. So this is a X1 slot here. So an adapter like this would work for these 2 slots. This one is a X4. So you could put this in a PCI Express 3.0 X16 slot, which is here. This would fit there. But this will not fit there because it's too small. This is too small. So you can also fit this X1 adapter card into a X16 slot. It would fit. But you would only get 1 gigabyte per second, which is not a lot. So for this, you want to put it in here. So by doing that, you can have 5 M.2 NVMe SSDs. The type of SSD that you want is a 2280. Doesn't matter what brand you get. That would all depend on how much you're willing to spend and which brands you prefer. So 2280. 80 is the length of the M.2 NVMe. So that would be probably up to here for 2280. They even have supports for longer ones. You could get a longer one if you want on this slot, but 2280 should be good enough. Anyways, let's for hard drives, I would recommend you get some hard drives. For me, I use a 3.5-inch hard drive for DVR stuff, for recording videos and stuff like I'm doing on this computer. I'm recording this video, and this is being written onto a hard drive, not a SSD. SSDs have more wear and tear when you write to it a lot. For magnetic hard drive with platters, you could write to it a lot more than on a 3D NAND chip, which a SSD uses, because SSDs have limited write cycles. So those are the options you can have for storage devices. Let's go here for RAM options. This motherboard supports up to, I think, 128 gigabytes of RAM. If you use 32 gigabytes DDR4 DIMMs, like it says here, 128. These are the frequencies for the DDR4s, non-ECC RAMs. It says for processor, it supports 10th generation Intel. Only core, okay. i7 or i9 is supported. As you can see, the video slots are, or PCI-e express slots are PCIe 3.0. So 3.0 is capable of 1 gigabyte per second. PCIe 4.0 is capable of 2 gigabytes per second. Here, you could pick 8. If you get 8 gigabyte DIMMs, you have 32 gigabytes. If you pick 16 gigabyte DIMMs, since you have 4 slots, 64 gigabytes. If you pick 32 gigabyte DIMMs, it's 128 gigabytes. It all depends on what you want on your computer. So if you want more RAM, you can get up to 128 gigabytes. If you only need 32, then just get this one. On my computer, I have 32 gigabytes on this on the computer with this motherboard. Here's the processors you can pick. Probably the best ones are the i7 10700K or KF, LGA 1200, i9 10900K LGA, or 10900 KF. So the KF version does not have a built-in graphics chip, so you can't use it without a video card. That's all it is. So for me, the one that I have is a i7 10000 KF, because I didn't plan on using onboard GPU. I just had a separate GPU installed on my computer. Mine has a RTX 3060, 12 gigabyte. So I didn't feel a need to get the K version. The K version is more expensive because it has a graphics chip in it. And the KF is slightly less expensive because it doesn't have a graphics chip in it. So that's basically it. The difference is between a K and a KF. So depending on the case that you get, if you already have a case with a 5.25-inch slot, you could put a 5.25-inch Blu-ray drive if you want. I have a Blu-ray drive on my computer. So this is an older type of case. That's what I have on with my computer. If you have the newer case, then you can't put a 5.25-inch Blu-ray drive. So depending on what your configuration is, depending on how much the type of RAM you have in there, the type of CPU, how many SSDs or hard drives, or your graphics card or whatever, you may need a you may need a more powerful power supply. Just make sure you check what you have in your existing computer, and if that's not adequate, then you have to get a new power supply. That's basically it. So let's go back to storage. I want to talk about the basics of it. So this has a 3.0 PCI Express 3.0 slot. So this M.2 NVMe slot right here is only capable of 3.0 by 4. So that's 4 gigabytes per second per slot. And this adapter has the same limitation of only 4 gigabytes per slot. It may have 16 slots here, but you can only use 4 on the M.2 NVMe. So the maximum is about 4 gigabytes per second. So if you want to get a newer generation of M.2 NVMe, which is capable of 7.2 or 7.3 gigabytes per second, then you cannot use the full bandwidth of that on these slots, because this motherboard has a PCI Express 3.0 slot. So at most you can get 4 gigabytes per second on these 3 slots: this slot, this slot, and this slot. However, for these 2 slots, since this is only a PCI Express 3.0 by 1 slot, this is only capable of 1 gigabyte per second. 1 gigabyte per second. So I would recommend you put something slower, like lower generation, like a M.2 NVMe 500 gigabyte or something here. So you'll be able to get at most 900 megabytes per second on these slots. On this slot, on these 3 slots, you'll probably be able to get at least 3.5 gigabytes per second. It's 4 gigabytes, but in theory, but in actual application, I think it's only 3.5 for this slot, this slot, and this slot. For this slot, you'll probably get 850 to 900 megabytes per second. So I wouldn't put the best M.2 NVMe's in these slots. So let's go to different types of configurations. So you could go to the i7 route, pick one of these processors. You could pick a RTX 3070 or RTX 4070. You pick 32 gigabytes or 64 gigabytes, whatever you want. The minimum is 8 gigabytes per DIMM, so 32 gigabytes. You could put 5 M.2 NVMe's in here. 2 of them will be PCI-e 3.0 with 3.0 adapters, and 2 of them will be M.2 NVMe slots. And one of them will be PCI-e Express 3.0 by 4 with a M.2 NVMe adapter, with one of these adapters basically. 2 4 terabyte SATA 3 hard drives. I would recommend Western Digital. I'll leave all the parts in the video descriptions below so you can choose, so you would know what to get if you wish to upgrade. You can pick 2 2.5 inch SATA 3 SSDs. Could be anywhere from 1 terabyte to 2 terabytes, depending on how much you're willing to spend. 1 terabyte is pretty inexpensive these days. That's like the standard now. Optical drive, if you want to add one, you could put a 5.25 inch Blu-ray. Recommended is at least 750 watts. Configuration 2, Intel i9 10900K or KF. I would recommend the KF if you're getting a GPU. You really don't have to pay extra for this paying extra for a feature that you will never use because you're using a dedicated graphics card. RAM, you could pick anywhere from 32 gigabytes to 64 to 128 if you want, depending on what you want. Same storage options. You could pick a Blu-ray drive if you want. If you don't put a Blu-ray, then you could put 3 2.5-inch SATA 3 SSDs. Or you could put one more SATA 3 hard drive, depending on what you want. You can add one here or one there if you don't want that. Recommended power supply, at least 850 watts. So let's do a calculation of power calculation. So this is the i9 with a RTX 4080 Super. Let's pick same, okay, 4080 Super with 7 SSDs with at least 1 terabyte. Doesn't really make a difference here because SSDs really don't use a lot of power. Hard drive here, 2 3.5-inch 7200 RPM hard drives, a Blu-ray, and recommended power is 800 to 899 watts. So 850 should be adequate. Let's check for the i7 10700K. Let's put KF. Super. Say I only want 32 gigabytes on this one. Same number of SSDs, the same number of hard drives. Let's say I don't want Blu-ray. And I pick a hard drive instead. Okay, it's about the same. About 700 to 799 watts. On the computer that I'm using, this one, I have a 3060 on here, so my power supply is about 600 watts, but for this configuration, it's about 700 to 799 watt because the graphics card is definitely better than the one that I have on my computer. So those are the options you could pick if you want to upgrade your computer with this motherboard. There's a lot of upgrade options for it. Maybe in the future I will upgrade it to this processor. Right now I have this processor. But I have upgrade options too. I can definitely add a better graphics card on mine because I only have a RTX 3060. And I could add more storage devices if I want. And I could probably add a better power supply because I only have a 600 watt power supply in there. So I will do that in the future. And you could do that too if you want. All the parts will be in the video descriptions below. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask about this. Thank you for watching.